Welcome to Mex Moves, our weekly podcast on Mexico business and finance. How are you, Eduardo?
Doing well, Damien. Are you?
Good. So this week we have a great interview with Felipe Vallejo. Felipe, as some of you may know, is the president of the Fintech Association in Mexico, and he's also the Mexico country manager for Bitso, the crypto exchange, stablecoin provider, and now all-in financial application for Mexican investors. Felipe is going to talk about how Bitso has evolved over the years in becoming a more sort of fully fledged financial platform in Mexico. And Eduardo, I think this week it'd make sense to talk about oil prices and the impact of the increase following the conflict in Iran on Mexico. It's a very different impact than in the past. And then we can address some of the other news. There's a good Bloomberg story profile on Fernando Chico Pardo, which followed also a very good profile in Whitepaper. So look at those two profiles and what they say about the current chairman of Banamex and also the owner of Azor, among other assets. And then maybe just do some housekeeping on some fundraising. ARQ, used to be called DolarApp, has raised some money. And yet again, so has Ualá, the Mexican bank and fintech.
Sounds good enough for me. You want me to kick up with the oil price situation and the repercussions on Mexico?
Go for it.
As we know, with the starting of the conflict in the Middle East, with the attack on Iranian's leadership, the oil prices reacted as they normally do. They went up a lot. Now, like you said, Damien, for Mexico, this is something that has changed radically over the past decades. Before, it benefited it in the sense that Mexico had a positive trade balance in oil products. We exported more than what we imported. And so that was good for the finances of the country. Mexico got more dollars per dollar that it sold abroad. But over the past few decades, and as Mexico has diversified its export sector and its oil production has declined, and now it looks a little bit more stable, the situation is completely different because we import much more than we export. And when oil prices rise, we do get more for each barrel of oil that Mexico sells abroad, but we also pay more for all the imported fuel products that we bring from mainly the United States. So the overall impact on Mexico is negative because of the deficit we have in the trade balance of oil products. And we have to also take into account that since the Mexican government wants to keep prices of gasoline stable in the country, it has to do so by subsidizing the price of that fuel by reducing the amount of pesos that it charges per liter of gasoline to consumers. So not only does the country as a whole is in the losing end when the oil prices rise, but the fiscal situation of the government also gets impacted negatively by having to subsidize or collecting less from taxes on gasoline and diesel that it currently applies. So I think for Mexico, the news is not positive any longer as it used to be.
That's right. I mean, I think that, as you said, there are rather different effects. The fiscal effect, as you said, will depend on whether the government indeed fixes the price at 24 pesos per liter, which is roughly where it is today, and where the president many times has said, the price will stay. If she commits to that, then a 10% increase in the oil price, according to Morgan Stanley numbers that I saw, will cost the federal government about 130 billion pesos, or 0.35% of GDP, and by lower excise taxes, or IEPS taxes, as they're called, in order to offset the increase in the oil price. On the other hand, Mexico would make more from its oil exports. It's still exporting 500,000 or so, 560,000 or so barrels a day. So they would make, according to Morgan Stanley, 0.23% of GDP. So the net effect of a 10% increase in oil price is to negatively impact federal deficit by about 0.1%, 0.13% of GDP. So as you say, it's a negative. It's not a big negative. And of course, Pemex itself, which is owned by 100% by the government, its finances would improve because they would be receiving this extra money. So if you consolidate Pemex in that, then maybe there isn't a meaningful impact. And of course, the government may not, if it goes on forever, may decide to let the 24 peso go to 26 peso, and therefore the reduction in excise tax would be less than that. So they're not legally committed to the 24 pesos per liter. So if they decide not to take the fiscal hit, then they would take the inflation hit. They can't do both at the same time. So if they let IEPS stay where it is, then obviously higher oil prices will lead to higher inflation, and that in turn could lead the central bank to pause on cutting interest rates. There are a lot of moving parts here. It's very difficult to disentangle kind of just one issue, because also you have FX effects. The FX moved on Monday, which slightly helps Mexico fiscally because they get more pesos for those oil exports. Then you got the private sector, which is a net consumer of especially natural gas in the industrial side. So they would be paying more for gas prices, which have also gone up. Then you have CFE, which is a huge importer of natural gas, which is also owned by the government. So a lot of different things going on. I think it's negative for Mexico. It's definitely less negative for Mexico than for pure kind of oil importers, Korea or Japan, let's say. But it's not as good as for Mexico as it used to be. And a country like Argentina now is more favorably positioned for this type of situation. Probably from my perspective, the biggest issue is global growth and global risk aversion. Mexico has a massive trade component in GDP. It's one of the most open economies in the world, mainly to the US, as we know. So if this leads to some kind of global economic slowdown, then that impacts Mexico, because it will export less and people will probably invest less. So it'll be caught up in this overall global economic volatility. That would be a bad thing.
Now we have to wait and see whether this price hike is a little bit permanent or not. I don't know. It seems like the situation in Iran, I don't know. It's in flux right now, but who knows how long the fighting will continue or not, to be honest. It seems like the strike was quite devastating for the leadership of the Iranian government. So we'll have to wait and see as well on that. But yeah, the initial reaction was the one that was expected when oil prices shoot up, the dollar strengthened a bit, the peso weakened. So yeah, moving pieces like always in the economy when things get out of their normal trajectory.
So this week, as I mentioned at the beginning, we saw two profiles of Fernando Chico Pardo, one in Bloomberg by our mutual friend Michael O'Boyle, and another in Whitepaper by Rene Lankenau. I don't know if you got a chance to read them or look at them. What did you make of them?
I didn't see yesterday's piece by Michael, but I'll certainly take a look at it. I read René's trajectory of Chico Pardo, which was quite interesting. It highlighted the good and the bad things or the successful and not so successful transactions that he has. I think both of them are quite timely, as Chico Pardo has become the chairman of one of the largest banks in Mexico. And it's a little bit under the radar. I don't know. I don't know if Mexicans know so much about him, but I'm glad that he's getting the profile or the limelight that his business acumen deserves. One thing that I didn't know before, Damien, was how much his kids are involved now in the family operations, and how they are becoming part of the financial group that he has managed to create over the past decades.
Yeah, I thought in Michael's piece, he was able to interview Fernando, and it was interesting going through the history and back to the 1980s, where Fernando and Carlos Slim, Mexico's richest man, of course, were partners at what is now called Inbursa, and Fernando was, as he described it, and Slim were making tons of money trading in case of Chico Pardo, petro bonds, and then they were buying these, what I think they were called caps, sort of bank stocks that pre-privatization. Chico Pardo said back then, this was under De la Madrid, so Mexico was for sale. They were able to buy companies at sort of absurdly low valuations, so very contrarian. A lot of Mexicans were shipping their money out of Mexico in those days, and those two made their first fortune by doing the opposite, buying stuff at very deep discounts in what was then a very nascent stock market, buying bank caps, so pre-IPO stocks, and Telmex, which was trading in the stock market, even though it was at that point majority was owned by the government. And then I thought, so there's quite a lot of color on that, which I think a lot of people are familiar with how he made his first sort of money, and then breaking out from Slim in 1997, which when he was about 45, which can't have been easy. Slim's obviously got a very strong personality, but Fernando said that he had his money. It was clear that Slim was going to work with his children and inherit his children, and Fernando wanted his own business and inherited it to his children, which is what he's now done. So he set up Promocap. He got some money from George Soros, and his big break was about 7 years later when he took control of Azur, the airport group, made tons of money on that. I think according to the white paper story, stock is up about 17-fold. He's able to massively increase commercial revenues, improve efficiency, and then obviously buy airports in the Caribbean, and now in Brazil, and now in the US, buying retail operations and airports. So it's been a huge growth story, and also a huge dividend player because it makes lots of cash. And then he talks about Carix. I don't think people are that familiar with Carix. It's the global port operator, and it's the parent of SSA Marine. That's also been a home run, and he sold half to Blackstone, made a lot of money there. And then, of course, they talk about the hotel group, which is quoted in the stock market, and they have assets, the Four Seasons of Mexico City, trophy assets in the Riviera Maya in Madrid, and that is they took control of that from a former Mexican, was one of the first Mexicans, if not the first Mexican partner at Goldman Sachs, Alan Sanjines and Bremer family, and they've managed to grow that, put new hotels in. So he's got a big challenge at Banamex. Its expense ratio is 60% or so last year, whereas BBVA is sort of in the mid-30s. So he's got to either cut expenses or grow revenues. I'm sure he'll try and do a bit of both. And I think the real stumbling block that Banamex had, because we've had talented people running it, is the systems are apparently quite outdated compared to BBVA's or Banorte. So it's always difficult to change a legacy core banking system while you're still running the bank. So that's what he's got ahead of him to justify the faith that he's put into Banamex. And then now last week we saw new investors buying another 24% of the bank. Some trophy names came in. So they've got to basically improve that return on equity, sort of in the single digits to high teens, and the only way to do that is improve efficiency and raise revenues, and the only way to do that is to overhaul the systems. Now, Chico Pardo was on the board at BBVA for Mexico for many years, so he knows how that bank is run, and They recently hired the head of systems from BBVA for Banamex. So that's probably going to be the key focus going forward.
Yeah, and one element that it's interesting and that was highlighted probably more in the René piece was his fighting with well, not fighting, but fighting with Larrea for different assets. As you know, with the Banamex, they had a little bit of bidding war. Well, it never got to bidding, but Larrea posted a bid for the company that didn't go through. And in another occasion, when he was taking control of Azur, or a larger stake in Azur, Larrea came as well and tried to buy the company that was selling a stake, and Chico Pardo was managed to fend off that push from Larrea. I thought he has quite an interesting life story, and his brother and him were also part of Inbursa. Well, his brother was head of Telmex for a while, so they were very close to the Slim. But Fernando did it on his own and has managed to accomplish a lot. I don't think those that are following his wealth calculate it fully, because some of the companies that he owns are not publicly known, or they're privately run, so it's hard to estimate how much they're worth. But so he definitely is one of the interesting characters of the Mexican business culture and world.
Yeah, and there was another fight, probably actually the bitterest and the most public, more so than Banamex or Azur, which was relatively short-lived, which is the whole saga of Chico Pardo controlled Costa Verde, which is a shopping center company, also listed, with Sam Zell involved, and they were trying to buy Planning Grupo, which is another shopping center operator, and Grupo Mexico outbid Costa Verde and stayed with Planning Grupo, which is now part of Grupo Mexico, and then Planning Grupo, now controlled by Grupo Mexico, made a hostile bid for Chico Pardo's Costa Verde, which in the end wasn't successful. So there was quite a lot of bad blood over that. And it's very, as you know better than I do, very unusual to see hostile takeovers in Mexico, and this this happened between those two investors. So yeah, I thought that was well brought up in René's piece.
Let me just mention also, the other thing is how accurately Chico Pardo left Unifin before the company collapsed. I mean, he invested in it, and then when it went public, he took his money out, and a few years later, the company didn't do well.
That's right. Although I think, I don't think, I don't have all the information. I think he might have got back into Unifin at the very end via Promocap. I don't think the relationship between him and Lebois is the best. But he certainly made a lot of money the first time around, investing in Unifin and then selling in the Unifin IPO. But when Unifin did a capital raise, trying to fend off bankruptcy, people in the market, and I don't know to what extent this is true, say Promocap participated, and obviously would have lost, if that's true, would have lost most of that money. So they might have been a little bit of a sting at the end. But if you're a vehicle like Promocap and you're making a lot of investments in different areas, you're obviously going to have some wins and some losses, some losses, and overall the wins far outweigh. I mean, especially Azur and the pork business, and now we'll see what happens with, and the hotel business. Now we'll see what happens with the Banamex. So moving on, I saw on Bloomberg again, $500 million investment in EV charging, electric vehicle charging, and e-bus investments by two global funds, mobility companies, Invisible Urban Charging and ATX Smart Mobility. And they're going to be investing in chargers and electric buses, mostly in central Mexico. And they're partnering up with the real estate platforms CBRE, who are going to be helping select the sites. And I thought, this comes, you probably remember, we had Venmo on the show last year, and they've raised a lot of money to invest in charging, in electric fleet of cars for Didi and Uber and others, and just individual customers. So and the Chinese cars continue to sell very well in Mexico. They had another good year. Tariffs have been increased on them, so we'll see what effect that has. But so far, it appears that the Chinese producers have absorbed most of the tariff and prices remain competitive. And I think the idea is that Mexico is reasonably well positioned for electric, kind of growing electric vehicle infrastructure, because in the center of the country, Mexico City, Querétaro, Bajío, and so on, got a very dense population. So people don't travel big distances, but they do spend a lot of time in their car because traffic is pretty bad. And apparently that works very well for electric vehicles. You don't get that anxiety by driving 400 miles, that you might get in the US driving around Texas. They're quite short trips here, quite densely populated in the center of the country, which makes it easier to lay out a network of charging stations, because you can get many more customers per station the more densely populated the country is. And then local authorities are very keen on using electric buses to bring down pollution, presumably to save money, and for the large, for a big majority of Mexicans, public transportation is still the way they get around, unlike in the US, and so using electric infrastructure, makes a lot of sense for them.
Yeah, I think it's a good sign that this is going on, because I guess for a country like Mexico, electric vehicles can help with its environmental problems in some of its cities. Again, the fact that electric stations needed to be built, that electricity needs to be taken to the charging stations. We go back again to the old conversation we've had, Damien, about the needs for Mexico to do something with its energy sector and increase the participation of private equity, private companies in it, to help develop all these new systems that are being created and that are being demanded, be it in vehicles, be it in data centers. So I don't know if they said who was going to supply the electricity to these charging stations, but and the bottom line is that they do need the energy, and we do need clean energy. So let's hope that this brings again to the forefront this very important topic for the growth and development of Mexico in the future.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So we saw a couple of fundraising rounds. One that struck me as particularly interesting, which is a fintech called ARQ, or ARQ, used to be called until a week ago DolarApp, raised $70 million. They're not Mexico-based. I think their headquarters probably legally, and a lot of their top people, their founders, are in London, but their clients, they have 2 million clients in Mexico, and they are focused on cross-border money movement, basically transferring money within the country you operate in, and also internationally, or perhaps especially internationally. And they're using stablecoins to do it, which is cheap. And if you trust the stablecoin in your account as real money, even if it's not technically real money, it can make a lot of sense. And they also pay you a yield. They're unveiling new products, credit card, investing in global stock markets. So they're not a regulated bank. They use other banks when it's necessary. They're using stable coins, and they're an investment advisor to help you invest your money in exchanges. And they're really focused on these global individuals like you, Eduardo, living in San Francisco, but being Mexican, that kind of live between the two countries, want to transfer money cheaply, want to invest in stock markets cheaply, want to earn interest on your idle balances, and trust stable coins. Anyway, what was interesting, apart from the amount of money raised, and they already have 2 million clients in Mexico, they claim, is that you've got kind of the royalty of San Francisco VC came in. You've got Founders Fund. That's the Peter Thiel VC fund. He's the guy behind PayPal and a lot of other iconic kind of startups in US and elsewhere. And I'm not aware of founders, and I might be wrong, I haven't checked it, having other meaningful kind of Mexico investments. So this might be one of Peter Thiel's bigger investments here. And Sequoia Capital, which is another kind of iconic San Francisco fund, as everyone obviously knows, and previously in Kazakh, which is a leading Latin American VC fund. So they did this rebranding basically to make it clear that it's no longer just a dollar peso, dollar Colombian peso sort of transfer app. It's a broader financial platform. And I downloaded the app as a sort of mystery shopper this morning. Haven't yet put money in it, but it could work for me. Let's see. I'll try and find out more about it. An example, the three founders all come from Revolut London, and it looks to me very much like a kind of Revolut copycat. Or how Revolut was at the beginning. So obviously the issue they're going to have is the competition from Revolut, which has its own bank license now in Mexico, and then Nu and everyone else is trying to do similar things. And as we'll hear in the interview with Bitso, even they are kind of getting into a similar type of business model as ARQ. So a lot of competition. Everyone says that they are the best, but in the end, the market size presumably doesn't grow exponentially. So if you're dividing it among more and more players, there's less money to be had. And if your business model is about saving customers money, then there's less margin. And then the other one was a big raise by Ualá, $195 million funding round. So I'm not exactly sure how much of that is equity, by Allianz X, the venture arm of the German insurance company, and they're valuing it at 3.2 billion. One also has to be a little bit careful with these numbers because sometimes they're a bit misleading. Sometimes they have liquidity rights, and it's convertible at a 3.2 billion. So I don't have access at this point, at least, to the specific details. I mean, there were quite a lot of press stories about how they're growing in Mexico. But if you look at the regulated numbers, it doesn't look very good for Ualá in Mexico. Their deposits are declining because they basically offer less attractive yield than the others. Last year, I think they lost over 1 billion pesos. Their revenues, which is basically their financial margin and fees and trading, were only about 120 million pesos, which is a tiny fraction of what Klar or Nu or Plata seem to be making, yet they have operating costs, not too dissimilar. So they have a so far very poor revenue to cost situation. Maybe that's all going to change. What one can't deny is that they're brilliant at raising money, even if based on regulated data, their unit economics don't look so attractive.
I got to tell you a little anecdote from this part of the world. I mean, I tried when I got here, I said, I'm going to do the fintech world. I'm going to do everything through fintechs. I was thinking of Revolut and others because of the no charges in transferring money to operations in Mexico. But then again, the institution that I belong deals not with fintechs, but with the old common names. So I had to open an account with Chase Bank, for example, and they don't charge you fees now if you send certain amount of money back to your home country. So I guess the whole ecosystem it's becoming good for the consumer. I wonder whether the results will be there for those larger number of companies that are trying to offer the same type of services. Who knows?
Yeah, no. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, Santander is not charging money, but transfers between Mexico and the United States, I think other banks are charging very little. So you still see in some of these fintech promotional materials, incumbent banks charge 5%. I mean, that's just not true anymore. Incumbent banks take 3 days to transfer money. Again, as far as I know, based on my own personal experience, it happens same day.
Well, they have to check that you're not laundering any money. But other than that, once you're clear, it goes immediately. But
yeah, so there's a
not
kind
trying
of
to dismiss the fintechs at all.
Terrific. Well, why don't we move on to talking about fintechs to our interview with Felipe.
Great.
So it's a real pleasure to have with us today Felipe Vallejo. Felipe is the Mexico country manager of Bitso. He's also global head of regulatory affairs at Bitso. How are you, Felipe?
I'm fine. Having fun here.
So we're actually recording this in the FinTech Festival. I think there's probably 2,000 people, maybe. How many? Tell us a little bit about the FinTech Festival.
So basically, the FinTech Festival this is a third edition. First edition we had around 800 people. Second edition around almost 2,000 people, and third edition we expect we haven't done the final tally, but we expect about 3,000 people. It's 52 events during the week, and then this main event today with 4 stages. More than 150 speakers and people from all over Latam, CEOs from fintech companies, regulators from the region, etc. And so it's been now it's, I would say in a nutshell, this is the epicenter of fintech activity in the region every year, and this is the event. No?
I should have also said that Felipe is the president of the FinTech Association. So you came up with this idea. It was your idea?
Well, ideas don't get executed by themselves. So I had the idea, but I also had a team, and the team has done a terrific job at executing whatever vision I had, and then adding up to the same vision with more ideas. And I think the FinTech Mexico team is a winning team because of that. No, we have great ideas, great executions, and a great team right now. Claudia Nunez, which is a new executive director of the association, is doing a terrific job also.
Brilliant. And what kind of impact do you think it's had?
I think it's several things. Number one, I think fintechs were not in the political agenda and on the country agenda in Mexico. And I think we're basically positioning ourselves as a serious and big industry as we are. We had the data, we had the size, but we didn't have the way to communicate the size of this movement, no? Because it is a movement, and now we have that. That's number one, the visibility that this gives us. Number two, on the substance, we now have 70 million users combined between all the fintechs in Mexico out of 130 million people that we have in Mexico as a population. This is 70 million added. Some users can have more than one fintech service. So we don't know unique users, but we have 7 million users if you add up all the companies in the Fintech Association. 15% of all remittances between the US and Mexico are moved with fintechs from the association. The main card issuer in the country is a fintech. We were able, through fintechs, to create 6 million more people investing in CETES. So 6 million, it used to be 6 million, now it's 12 million. So we doubled the size of the population that invested in Mexican T-bills in CETES. No? So it's just one after the other. Just one company in the association has 80,000 small SMEs, 80,000 out. I think we have 4 million SMEs in Mexico. Just one company, a service that gives credit to 80,000.
Which one is that?
I don't want to do any ads, but you can find out. But just one. If you add the other ones up, it's more than that. It's probably 200,000, 300,000.
Well, congratulations. Why don't we switch to Bitso, which is your day job?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So Bitso's doing a lot. It started off as an exchange for cryptocurrencies. It's now diversified into offering its own stable coins. It's now announced that it's going to be offering a brokerage product and letting people buy stocks and bonds around the world. So why don't you just go through what the main product offerings are of Bitso, and then what the main kind of clients are, from retail to SMEs to institutional financial vehicles?
Yeah, there are 2 business units in Bitso. The one which we're known for, which is Bitso, it's retail. It's a retail business unit, and then we have a Bitso business, which is newer, and it's basically a B2B business unit. On the retail side, we basically started with the only thing you could do in Bitso was many years ago was buy crypto, like pesos, crypto, pesos, and that's it. We were like a bridge between crypto and pesos, an exchange. And two things happened. One, we amplified the assets we offer in the platform. Now we have, you said it, we have stocks, we have gold, we have silver. You can buy dollars, euros, no? And so the vision there is to become the main investment platform in Latin America. Period. Not crypto, just the main investment platform in Latin America. That's what we're building. We have around 11 million users in Latam. And basically the size of the users and the activity is growing, no? And then the second part is Bitso Business, which basically we do two things. In one connection, you have local payments, and the second one is international payments, right? Local payments, you have in one connection, you have access to SPAY, ACH in the US, ACH in Colombia, Coelsa, PIX in Brazil, so you have access to domestic payments, and also we do FX payments, international payments. In that part, stablecoins have played a crucial role. Last year we moved around $10-12 billion in international transactions. Half of it was remittances, so we move right now through Bitso around 10% of all remittances from the U.S. to Mexico, and now we created a team specialized in business FX, right? So that's growing at a double-digit per month basis.
So if we start with Bitso, the retail business, if you want to call it that, to be the largest and most important investing platform in Latin America, that's quite a way to go from where you are today. What do you need to do to achieve that objective? Do you need to buy broker-dealers in Mexico, Brazil? Do you need to hire new technology? What are the gaps to achieve your objective?
The first thing is for people to know you can buy more than crypto in Bitso, right? And people are Bitso is known for being a place where you can invest, but usually you can invest in the two things that people do the most were Bitcoin and then dollars, right? Stable coins. No? People would do those were the two most traded assets. Now I think one of the challenges is, and thanks for this space to communicate that Bitso is more than crypto. It is more than stablecoins. It is an investment platform. No, it's sort of like the Robin Hood, the Latam Robin Hood, and that's the way we're doing things. And that's the first challenge. Second challenge is fulfill the promise we're making to users. Basically, the promise is you were able to buy 24/7 instant liquidation with a great UX in 2 clicks, 3 clicks with crypto. We're transferring that to stocks and to other traditional investments, right? So the idea is those benefits of those trades that we had in crypto, 24/7 instant settlement, etc., to do that for stocks, for example. Now, right now you can do 24/5 in stocks, which doesn't happen in Mexico. Instant settlement, which doesn't happen in Mexico. So that's the second challenge, actually delivering on the promise. And the third challenge is absolutely, we have experience with that. We have six regulated entities across LATAM, and in Europe we have one. So we have experience with regulated entities, but definitely it is one of the things we need to invest on is more licenses, right? Right now, with the investment advisor license in Mexico and the brokerage in the US, we're able to offer the stocks, for example. With our license in Europe, we can offer crypto. With our licenses in Brazil, Argentina, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, we can offer e-money, right? So So we're building on that. No? But it's definitely a challenge, at least a cost investment in terms of time, no, that we need to make.
There were some press reports half a year ago or so that you were going to buy a broker dealer in Mexico. You probably saw them. And then I think it was you or one of your colleagues, probably you, said, well, actually, we're going to go greenfield and apply for a license. What can you fill us in on what the current thinking is?
The current thinking is we're definitely always looking. Bitso is growing in terms of jurisdictions, in terms of products, in terms of clients, the number of clients. And as that happens, you definitely are going to need more licenses to offer more services and to offer more trust. And we're always looking if there are opportunities to buy licenses or to create one. We're always analyzing that. We did analyze different opportunities in the past. One was that we've been analyzing options, but it didn't. We basically didn't proceed with that transaction, and it just was basically a preliminary analysis that happened. But we're always looking into licenses, and my forecast is that in some shape, way, or form, maybe not as Bitso, maybe as a group, because we have Envío, that's our regulated license in Mexico. We have another license and Asesor de Inversión in Mexico, which name is Invierte, etc. Basically, one day we're probably going to end up with something different from an IFPE or an investment advisor. No?
And how are the regulators, or how's the government looking at a financial entity, a fintech that started in crypto, then offering traditional kind of financial investments? I mean, in the past, there was a sort of walled garden. There was a bunch of crypto people, a lot on Binance, a lot on you, and then there was a traditional Actinvers and GDMs and Banortes and so on. This convergence between crypto and real assets, if you want to call them that, is something that the authorities are looking on positively.
Yeah, the separation, this healthy distance that was described, is still on. Hasn't changed. The policy is that at the moment, and we've kept that separation as directed by the central bank, by the authority, with Envío, with Bitso. This separation is still there, but that doesn't mean that we're a financial group, not as described by the law. We're a business group at least, and at some point, also we with this healthy distance, we need to. That's a reality right now. It can change later on, but the reality is there's a separation between crypto and the rest of the financial system in Mexico, and but that doesn't mean we can't get other licenses that have their own operation, their own team, no, as Envío, as Invierte with Asesor. But that healthy distance is still there. We are definitely pushing for that to change because the world is changing. But the reality in Mexico is we have that, and we respect it, and we need to be compliant, right?
Do you think Mexico will have its own version of a Genius Act?
I think it will at some point. Once the U.S., it's not just Mexico. Once the main architect of the financial system in the world is the U.S., right? That's the Genius Act, and then now if the Clarity Act passes, it's going to trickle down. It's going to trickle down to the whole system, and I think it's going to be one of the hot topics. For example, when the USMCA is going to be renegotiated. If so, I think stablecoins is going to be one of the topics. What happens if a bank in the U.S. Sends a stablecoin to a Mexican bank, right? Is that blocked? Are you going to block financial information flowing under the USMCA or not? Which is one of the things that's prohibited, blocking the flow of financial information just for no reason at all. And I think there are going to be questions on what's your framework, and same with Canada. There are going to be questions on what are you doing on stablecoins, and my forecast is at some point I think tokenization and stablecoins are going to be regulated in Mexico, for sure. I think that's a reality.
And how worried are you that people use crypto and stablecoins, which is obviously one crypto asset, to avoid AML and KYC and basically launder money?
We need to be. I think the message from FinCEN is be proactive. There are two parts to this question. I think that the answer, in my opinion, is one. There are mechanisms to mitigate AML risks in crypto, very well-known mechanisms. Number two, crypto is not untraceable. Crypto, you can trace it, you can mitigate the risks, and with technology, and actually you can mitigate those risks better than with the usual financial system. And then the third part is we need to keep being proactive because the crime never stops, and we don't want the stablecoins and crypto to be a medium for illicit activity. I think that there probably is in the sector, and we need to keep that percentage almost close to zero if possible, and that's going to be one of the propellers for this technology in the region, right?
Do you think there are going to be thousands of stable coins, US dollar, peso, or do you think it's going to be highly concentrated in one or two winners?
Highly concentrated.
Right.
And that's my feeling, just because network effects in crypto are very powerful. No, just Bitcoin, first crypto, decentralized, it's still 60-70% of the market cap, right?
And do you have any sense of your market share in Mexico? In stablecoins?
Stablecoins, there's the last report in LATAM is that 90% of stablecoins flow through Bitso in LATAM.
But as an exchange, not your own stablecoin.
No, not our own. Like they use the people. So yeah, exactly. They use USDT, USDC, other stablecoins. We have ours, MXMB. But no, I'm talking about like if you add up all the volume, stablecoin volume in LATAM. Latest report is 90% of the volume, 95% of the volume is through Bitso, right? And it's because we have, in my opinion, the reason for that is we have use cases. It is not just for trading purposes, which was the first use case for stablecoins was, I don't want to be in Bitcoin. I don't think it's gonna go up, so I'm gonna keep my money in stablecoins, right? And then back into crypto. It was for trading purposes now. Now it's getting up to a point where the use case is payments, right? The main use case. In Argentina, you have retail cases more in the past where people will use stable coins as a way to keep their value, no?
So if we move to Bitso business, obviously a newer business, looking around the fintech festival, there's a lot of publicity and booths for Bitso business. Tell us a little bit the products, which you've already mentioned, but maybe in a little bit more depth, and who your sort of main types of clients, whether it's SMEs, big companies, everyone.
No. First, we started two products: access to SPAY, local payments. That's usually for payment processor companies. They use our infrastructure and connect to SPAY. They connect to PIX, mainly to SPAY.
So that's competing with STP, let's say, for the sake of argument.
Absolutely. That's about it.
So you have a lot of happy customers because they complain about STP margins.
And the reason we have that product is that product was actually created for Bitso at some point. We created our SPAY system to service Bitso, and BO was created to serve at some point Bitso, and now what we discovered is, since we created this amazing SPAY system for us, right? Who better to judge or to feel the pain than us, no? We couldn't have downtime. We couldn't. It had to be super reliable, robust, etc. So at some point we said, now we're ready. This product is amazing. And some users started saying, "Hey, can I connect to your SPAY?" We were like, "Absolutely." And this was very organic, and we did a 20x in revenue from January, like month. If you measure January last year to January this year, in 12 months, we 20x our revenue in Spain. So it's growing like a rocket ship, and it's because we're basically targeting a few customers very well served. No? That's one part, and then
Are there customers on financial customers which don't have direct access to Spain themselves,
yes.
or are they corporates?
Both. We have payment processors that are not regulated and they don't have access, and some of them are fintechs that will have access, and we're servicing them. Those are our two main clients, and then on the FX part, our main volume came from remittances, but now
the remittances is your basic.
We service our remittance company.
It's a B2B business.
It's a B2B business.
You have no customer contact.
Absolutely.
You work with Electra, with
work
with whoever it might be.
Yeah, Remitly, these companies. No, we give them access to payment rails, but we're not. We don't serve the final retail customer. It's a B2B play. You said it.
But are they using your stablecoin, or are they using someone else's stablecoin on your
someone else's stablecoin in our platform?
Okay.
We just have the integration. For example, if you send dollars to Mexico, to pesos, with the traditional rails, it takes from 1 to 3 business days. With Bitso, it takes our KPI is 10 minutes, but it usually gets there in 10 seconds. So it's immediate, it's fast. It actually works during weekends, that's probably one of the main cost reduction drivers in Bitso's FX product is on a Saturday you don't need to have it works. No, a Saturday 7 p.m. 8 p.m. What's happening in the traditional sector is remittances companies need to leave a float of pesos in the Mexican side, which has 2 issues: FX risk, and also the cost of capital of having just pesos floating there. So they could, when they send dollars, they liquidate the pesos that are here. But the dollars you send from the US, they arrive on Monday or Tuesday on a weekend, right? And this is a cost. Having just like pesos in a deposit account, just like waiting for someone to do a transaction, that's a cost, right?
I think that some banks at least say, well, you can create the same product by tokenizing deposits and having instant transfer. Why do you think that stablecoin is inherently superior or more efficient than tokenization of existing deposits?
The current system is just as if I had to, if I want to send a WhatsApp message to you, and as opposed to just sending a message directly, because it's the same network, I send the message I want to deliver to you, I send it to someone else, and that someone else sends it to someone else, and that someone else sends it to you, right? That's a current system, right? If I want to send you a message, I need to go through 4 hubs just to send you a message. Stablecoins are the WhatsApp message that goes P2P, right? Or almost P2P yet. When people learn how to use this effectively, they won't even need Bitso. Maybe not. Who knows? No? And we might just be a UX provider, no? So the experience is nicer, but maybe not. As the current system has like 3, 4, 5 hubs to send just money movement is just messages flowing around, no? Like who has what, no? And the stable coins right now is a direct WhatsApp message to you as opposed to going around. That's so the advantages are a faster settlement, a 24/7 operating system, and then a programmable money. You can program money to do X or Y stuff. So you can put anything in it in terms of like programmability. And I was just to finish this comment. I was in a panel earlier today. And I was asking a moderator, how would you send $1 to me? I don't know if you were there, but if you want to send me $1 right now, $1, how would you do it?
Use Felix, the WhatsApp FX.
Well, no, exactly. Well,
they
use stablecoins. Yeah, absolutely. You would use stablecoins, but if you want to send it through a bank, how do you do it in Mexico?
Well,
$1. We both need to have a bank account in the US Or if you have a bank account in the US, I need to have a bank account in Mexico. But to have a US denominated account, I need to at least have, I think, 3 million pesos to get to Banca Patrimonial, which is a VIP, no? And it's a hassle. And if you send $1 through the SWIFT system, you get charged 20 for sending one. How would you do it?
Yeah. So just use them as an example, Felix, when I transfer the money by WhatsApp, that is going through the Bitso platform for the most part, or in many cases?
In many cases.
Okay. But eventually they could do it peer-to-peer. They could bypass
Absolutely.
a platform.
And they can, and people can definitely skip Bitso, skip Felix, and just do it P2P at some point. That doesn't eliminate that you have visibility in the network in terms of AML. You can see the transactions, and you can pinpoint the amount of data that, and it's a story forever. Like the records are there. That's one of the properties of blockchain. You can, whatever money movement you made, it's there forever, right? And there are cases in the history of blockchain and crypto where even there was one this very famous Silk Road case. 2 years later, these students in the University of Texas were studying the blockchain and the case, and then they were like, "Oh, there are bitcoins missing for that case," and it ended up that 2 police officers or DA officers that were involved in this operation had stolen Bitcoin, and they ended up in jail. 2 years later, these 2 guys studying the blockchain were like, what happened with this Bitcoin? No? This is not being reported, no, as confiscated. No?
So can you share, in orders of magnitude, how much bigger is Bitso retail or Bitso business right now? I mean, what drives the numbers at Bitso?
Last year, probably 70-30, which is big. So it's been growing a lot. Okay. And retail is growing, but Bitso business is growing faster. And 70-30, and my guess is even with all the growth that retail is having, this thing is going to end up somewhere 50-50 in 18 months.
Because obviously crypto prices, excluding stablecoins, have performed disastrously over the last 6 months. Usually when asset prices fall, people stop trading, right? It takes away the exuberance. Yep. Have you seen a big decline in trading volumes? Has that hurt Bitso a lot?
No, we haven't. We have seen some decline for sure, as every exchange or investment platform, even investment platforms like Robinhood have declines, etc. But it's always like there's a 3x growth in revenue in volume, and then there's a 40% decline, and then people are saying, "Oh, they're probably broken." No, it increased before that. It increased 3x, and then even if it's half, like the downturn, it's 1.5 times still. No, so it grows in a volatile way, like the volume, but it's always growing. If you measure like the last 5 years, it's always like a straight line. It grows, no?
And it's fine if the answer is no. Do you have a view on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies where they're going over the next 6 months?
No. No one knows. No one knows where stocks are heading, and we don't like giving investment advice to our users. We have third parties that are experts in that, and they give investment advice. In stocks, we do give investment advice, just in stocks, because we have an investment advisor. We use sometimes AI for that. We use some experts that we have and that are qualified as investment advisors. But we usually, our only advice are 2. Don't put more money into crypto. That's why we have stocks, right? And that's why we have the sort of like T-bills, investments, no, somehow with the dollar that we have, the stablecoins. But just regarding crypto, our usual answer is we don't give investment advice. Don't put more money than you can lose. Usually, like a nice measure in empirical papers is like under 5% is fine, no? If you're not a qualified investor. And the final part is, but invest some, no? At least have 1% of your portfolio with exposure to crypto, especially Bitcoin and Ether and other more. We have more assets than that, but like one of the ideas is, at least have some exposure because we're bullish on the technology, right? That's obvious.
Felipe, thank you so much for sharing your time with me on this day. Congratulations on the FinTech Festival.
Thank you.
On everything that Bitso has achieved.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the time.
So that's it for this week's Mex Moves. Thank you for joining us. Please review us, share us, criticize us, and we hope to be back next week. And we hope you enjoyed it.